It's that time of year, Chicago Bears fans. Roster cut down season. We're taking our shot at predicting the Chicago Bears 2025 53-man roster. Who makes it? Who gets cut? Who is on the bubble but might be a surprise name who sneaks their way onto the team? We've got the breakdown, the battles, and maybe even a few hot takes along the way. I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. With me tonight is regular co-host Bob Weiss, along with returning special guest Gary Rappaport Ross. Welcome to the Halas Huddle, where the roster's never final, but the debates are always fierce.
We want to thank everyone again for helping us get to that 1,500 subscribers threshold. We're really happy to be here. We're really happy you're here with us. We will do the drawing on Sunday's episode. We are still in the process of aggregating all the comments. And we also just think it'd be fitting that Justin is here to help us announce the big winner. So stick with us, but still, please continue to comment. We love hearing what everybody else thinks. It helps shape our opinions, and we love hearing what you think of our opinions. So just make sure you comment on this video.
Yeah, so please tell us where I am wrong 100%. I'd love to hear it. My wife doesn't do it enough.
Never wrong.
Gary, also, thank you again for being on the show. Gary, you were a big part of our big episode last time, so hopefully everyone's here, and we'll give Gary a big shout out in the comments as well.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys inviting me back and looking forward to this.
Yeah, this will be a fun one.
So, shall we?
Yeah, we have a quarterback controversy brewing in Chicago already, guys. QB1 is on the bubble. Who's going to be the quarterback of this team?
I think we can all agree that that's a ridiculous joke, Rob.
Yes, 100%. Right. Please don't think I'm being truthful.
Rob's going to get that sniffed.
Some people watching right now who think that Tyson Bagent's extension means that Caleb Williams is on the hot seat. That is a real thing. And if you're thinking that right now, get in those comments, tell us why you think that, and we will explain right now why that's just not the case.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations to Tyson Bagent. He deserved the contract extension. From what I read is that it took him about a week to think this over because he was trying to decide, hey, am I going to stay here in Chicago, sign a 2-year deal, or do I want to see what can happen in free agency? Because look, in his mind, he thinks he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. You have to think that way. If you are an NFL player, you should always want to be the starter, right? And in my opinion, he has a lot of tools. He doesn't have the natural talent that obviously Caleb Williams has, but there are teams out there that have worse quarterbacks, and you also never know what could happen with injuries. So I applaud him for taking the deal. His reasoning was this coaching staff, which again just proves the Ben Johnson effect is like hot and heavy here in Chicago. He thinks they're going to help him develop even more. So excited for him, but QB2 for sure on this roster.
Right. And Rob, one of the things that I want to add to that is it's a fair deal on both sides, right? Real quick, because he was going to be a restricted free agent. The Bears had his rights. He could have looked elsewhere around the league, as you mentioned, to see where he might have went, but the Bears could have matched everything. And I had, like, in the back of my head, I thought maybe you get like a second tender so that if some other team does try to poach him, they either owe the Bears a second rounder or the Bears try to re-sign him. And that tender, at least from this past season, was about $5.6 million roughly. And so 2 years at 10, it's slightly below that. So I think it's a fair deal all around on both sides.
Yeah, and I think, the biggest reason why this contract doesn't mean that Caleb Williams is on the hot seat is because it's just $5 million a year. He's not getting paid like a starter, and he's getting a fraction of the money that Caleb Williams is, right? However, I do think it's enough money where now you don't need to waste a roster spot on Case Keenum. The Bears have their 2 quarterbacks moving forward. There is no need to pay an assistant coach, NFL veteran money, and take up a spot on the roster. 2 quarterbacks. That's all you need.
Case is making like minimum money one, right? He wanted to come here to play under Ben. Ben likes his veteran quarterbacks too. And basically, as we know, Case is really another coach. I know there was some of that controversy at the beginning of camp, who's 2, who's 3 between Tyson and Case, but he's that extra coach. He's the locker room presence. We did not have a locker room presence last year, and we know how that affected Caleb down the stretch more than probably it should have. So Case is going to be here. I have him as a lock on this roster. I don't think there's any chance that he is removed from the roster unless his leg injury lingers a lot further. But no, I have Case on the roster.
I mean, that leg injury is almost exactly why I think he's going to not make the 53. It's if what you're really saying is he has to be here for assistant coach. Because look, your first 2 points was that he's making minimum money and he wants to be here. That's almost everybody who we're going to cut on this episode today. That's fine. So the assistant coach part is fine. So he's got a hurt leg. Oh, well, let's just put him on the season-long IR. We can pay him. He can be here. He can still get his NFL benefits. He can be an assistant coach and not take up a roster spot from somebody else who might help the team on Sundays.
Bob, you're outvoted. Gary and I are locking him in as QB3 on this team. My reasoning is last year, I don't know how many times I was saying, how do you have a rookie quarterback with a second-year quarterback and expect to see good results? And look, it just didn't work out. And we kind of heard that Caleb Williams needed help with film study and all that other stuff, things that he wasn't getting from the coaching staff. And they're only allowed to do so much coaching in that regard too. They only have so much time. So having a guy like Keenum in the room, I think is extremely important for Caleb's development. I think they realize that. I think he's sticking around.
Of all the things that are going to help Caleb Williams this year, where does Case Keenum sitting next to him in a meeting room rank? 1? Is that the most important thing?
No, probably
7?
like 5.
Are there 6? I think this got to be 12 or 13. Like, it just can't be that big a deal. Just can't be.
But when you look at the 53-man roster, like, I'm okay with keeping a third quarterback over another running back or over another corner. So to me, Keenum's on the team.
All right. Well, it's a very unconvincing job you guys have done, but I think
Well,
it was
do we at least agree that Austin Reed's going to stay on the roster as well as the 4th quarterback practice squad?
I sure hope so. I think he's terrific. I really
and
do.
He's like best friends with Case Kmet, right?
At least from Hard Knocks.
Yeah, sure, maybe. All right. Well, shall we move on to running backs then?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So we all agree that Swift and Monangai are making this team. I think everyone watching this agrees that Swift and Monangai are making the team. Now, the 3 of us agree that Travis Homer is going to make the team because he is a special teams starter. That's one thing that I feel like a lot of people missed when they're going through 53-man rosters is that a special team starter, especially a 4th-phase special team starter, is way more important than a 3rd or 4th string player at a different position in the coach's eye. There's only 45 players who are active on game day, 53 total rosters, so you have to make sure your special teams are strong, and that's why Homer is a lock for the 3 of us.
Yeah.
And the way Hightower talks about him is, he's a lock. He's one of the first guys they re-signed this offseason, along with Josh Blackwell, who we'll talk about later. So I completely agree with you, Bob. Now, the next couple guys, I think we all have different opinion on. So, Rob, I'll let you go first with who your 4th running back is.
Yeah, so my 4th running back isn't on the roster, okay? I'm drinking the Kool-Aid of what's going around town right now, and I think they're going to figure out a way to get Brian Robinson Jr. here. Roschon Johnson is on my roster, but I'm putting him, designating him IR to return. Look, he can't stay healthy. Rumors are he's dealing with a concussion on top of the foot injury, right? So, like, that concussion thing just keeps lingering. I just worry about that. And Brian Robinson Jr. has got connection to Eric Bieniemy, who was the assistant offensive coordinator or assistant head coach and offensive coordinator in Washington in 2023. So if they can make a deal happen there, I mean, look, Brian Robinson's not like an elite running back. You know, he had 8 touchdowns last year. He averages over 700 yards a season, but like you bring him in, put him in the mix, get him 400 or 500 yards, get him, 5-6 touches a game. I'm good with that.
Would you do one of those trades that we've been seeing today for depth players like Robinson in a 7th for a 6th type of deal? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I don't think you got to give up a ridiculous amount of capital for a guy who's basically kind of been pushed off his team.
And I'm similar to you. My 4th running back, I just have as an open roster spot now. I think it's going to be a trade or waiver wire pickup of somebody. I haven't decided who yet, but I agree with you that Roschon will probably go on IR to return. Hopefully that leg injury is better get him healthy. Clearly, we have not seen anything from the media, from Ben. There's been no indication when he's coming back. So clearly, there's something greater that they're not alluding to right now, which is unfortunate. But I do believe that running back is one of a couple positions, at least in my opinion, that they're definitely scouting the waiver wire on. And we know they've just been bringing in camp bodies just at least because of attrition right now, let alone what they actually need for the roster for the season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Royce Freeman is not the answer, guys.
No,
He's
definitely
Friday,
not.
fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I agree with you guys completely in that there's going to be 4 running backs on this roster. I don't think Roshan Johnson's making it week 1. And like they're going to have to upgrade over Eden Wheeler or Britton Brown. I know that it's so easy to fall in love with these guys because we watch them play, we watch them excel, but they are just guys. Every team in the NFL has running backs like this. And so here we are talking about we need to upgrade our starters with a running back from another team. And we got some fans thinking that we have to keep Britton Brown because he just played really well in a preseason game. Like, no, that's not the case. We need to upgrade over a guy like that. You don't just try to protect a guy like that. Britton Brown will not get claimed. And if he does, we'll find another running back just as good as Britton Brown. So let's not worry about that.
Justin is literally having a heart attack right now that we are not keeping Ian Wheeler on this roster. But we are, Justin, because he's going to clear waivers and we're putting him on the practice squad.
That's right. That's right. Just because we're not putting these players on our roster doesn't mean we don't like them. It just means there's only 53 spots. All right. Wide receiver, I think, is interesting. We all agree on the same 5 guys. There's obviously 4 wide receivers in DJ, Rome, Zacchaeus, and Luther. Those are the 4 studs. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but show me an NFL team that's got a better top 4 than that. And then, Devin Duvernay was signed as a return specialist. He didn't show much to me anyway. I know, Gary, you watched a lot more training camp than I did. Duvernay didn't show a lot to me as a receiver, but that's not why he was signed.
No, I mean, even in camp, he wasn't standing out, right? And then he's been banged up in camp as well, and he just got hurt before the last preseason game that was reported. So, yeah, I have Duvernay making the roster too. He also has done the gunner role, and we know how important that is, as you alluded to earlier, Bob, on special teams. So him and Homer, core special teamers, both kick returners, both could do punt returning, like we said. Maybe Duvernay will probably be the starter, but at least Homer, it's depth. And then we get into I only have 5 as well, so there's the 5, but there's definitely bubble guys. There's Miles Boykin, who's had a up and down camp, but always injured. There's Jahade Walker, who's come onto the scene late and catching everything thrown his way. He started with the 3s and he's been working a lot with the 2s now with Tyson and getting that great rapport. And, we got everyone's favorite in Tyler Scott, and I say that facetiously, but, he's had a couple good catches in camp. He's what you expect, right? He looks good against bad players, 2s, 3s, 4s, but really hasn't done much when he gets a little spot starting with the 1s or even the higher end 2s we've seen in camp. And I think you'll probably see 2 of those guys hit the practice squad. But I don't think they'll be looking for anybody outside in the waiver wire. I think you got your 5 and a couple of these guys making the practice squad. And then the one guy that I think that we haven't touched on real quick is JP Richardson. Started out hot in OTAs at the beginning of camp, but it's kind of fizzled down. He had a miscatch the other day. I know the ball was thrown a little bit behind him, but I think you keep one of JP Richardson and Jahade Walker on the practice squad, in my opinion.
I got to say, Tyler Scott actually played very well against the Buffalo Bills. And it was like, man, where was this his whole entire freaking career? And it's just not enough for me. It's too little too late. I know he's on the bubble, but to me, and he might make the team just because of Ryan Poles. And we know how sometimes he can hold on to those draft picks. I mean, how long was Velus Jones here? I think he turned 83 while he was on the roster. But I just can't keep him. I can't. I'd rather keep, a Jahade Walker or a Miles Boykin over Tyler Scott at this point.
So if Duvernay really isn't going to contribute much at the actual wide receiver position, do they need to keep 6? Can they get away with just 5 if one of them really isn't a wide receiver?
But how many are you going to actually have active on game day, Bob? Right, that's the key question, because you might have 5 receivers active on game day. Most teams do. Some teams only have 4. But as Ben has talked about, trying to get that ball to all of his skill guys, right? You've got 3 to 4 running backs active on game day. You're going to have probably 3 tight ends and then at least probably 5 receivers. So these depth pieces at these skill positions are going to have to be high-end special teamers, and I think Hightower's going to have a lot to say. So, yeah, I think Duvernay's making it. I don't think you need a 6. I think you keep maybe 2 to 3 receivers on the practice squad so that you have that quick depth and can call them up if needed.
All right, that makes sense. All right, well, let's move to tight end then. Komet and Loveland, obvious locks. Me personally, I think that they need 4 tight ends if they're going to play so much 12 personnel, but I just have no idea who. You guys like Durham Smythe as kind of the blocking tight end, right? And then between Joel Wilson and Steven Carlson, and where were they going there? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think Smythe is a lock. I mean, originally they were trading for him, right? And then it ended up being Miami cut him, and then they were able to get him without actually trading, right? If I remember correctly. Joel Wilson, like, from what I recall, was like the guy early on, right? But then he, like, you keep talking about people fizzling out. I feel like he's kind of fizzled out too. Steven Carlson has been around for a while. Like, he's just that name that just keeps sticking around here in Chicago. And for some reason, I just think he's going to be that guy who clears waivers and is put on the practice squad again. I don't see 4. Personally, I only kept 3. But to your point, if look, they're going to be running a lot of 2 tight end sets. They might need a 4th, and if they're only keeping 5 receivers, maybe they try to keep both of them on the practice squad.
And Bob, I know you said you weren't sure about Smythe, but Ben was a tight end coach, back in the day with Miami, and that's a guy that he personally, is vouching for. So that's why I think he's a lock. And then Joe Wilson, Rob, to your point, looks good out of pads, looks okay in pads, bounced around. Another guy that has a lot of injury history, so probably someone you could sneak onto the practice squad. And then Carlson, to be honest, and Bob, you mentioned it earlier, like with me being at camp, all I'm seeing is a lot of Carlson in the backfield. Feel like he's the backup to Komet in a way, because I've seen Komet in the backfield in that fullback-ish role, that hybrid role you want to call it, where you could leak him out. So if you're keeping 4, I would tend to lean Carlson over Wilson. But again, Rob, I kind of agree with you. I think both of those guys probably end up on the practice squad, at least initially.
So, Gary, you have 3 tight ends as well?
As of right now, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, well, let's move on to a little bit more interesting position, the offensive line.
I'm going to stop for 1 second. We haven't talked about him yet, but if Doug Kramer, fullback extraordinaire, was actually available, Carlson would have no shot.
I haven't seen Kramer at all in camp lining up at fullback, so Ben may have a different opinion than the Flusser. We'll say that.
All right, now we can move on.
All right, so I think we know Braxton Jones is going to make the team. Whether he's going to be a starter or not, he's going to make the team. Then you got Tooney, Dahlman, Jackson, and Wright to round it out. Ozzie is going to make the team. And Ryan Bates just has all the pictures for Ian Cunningham and Ryan Poles, and he's going to make it too. And then we all agree that Theo Benedict and Luke Newman are going to make the team as well. So that's 9. And that's a pretty decent number, but that leaves Karan Amagaji on the bubble. So how are we feeling about that?
I'll jump in first because I think my take is easiest. I'm keeping him. He's my 10th. I have 10 offensive linemen. 1, I think he can play inside if they needed him to. And he just has that physicality, like that. He kind of looks like Tarzan, maybe plays a little bit like Jane, but like when you see guys who actually have size and the arm length, it's kind of hard to think that they might actually make it through waivers to put him on a practice squad. So I just feel like that guy's going to be kept. As far as the left tackle situation, I'm going to throw this to Gary, and I'm going to throw it with something he put on social media. Gary, I agree with you that they should give Benedict the start against Kansas City Chiefs and see how he does after they just gave Braxton Jones those 14 snaps with the starters against the Bills.
No, yeah, I proposed that on Twitter, Rob, so I do appreciate our X these days. Word out of, practice today is that, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but Braxton did get all the reps with the starters again. So clear. That's probably a clear indication that the veteran is going to be the day one starter. But yeah, I do want to see Theo play with the starters, play against the Chiefs starters. I don't know how many snaps the Chiefs starters are going to get, but I also want to see him play against high end twos. Right, we've been seeing him in these games so far against I'll call low end twos, threes, and fours, right? And he's looked relatively good. And we've, maybe a couple plays he admits that he wants back in his presser yesterday. But let's give him against the Chiefs' top defensive ends, even if it's 8 total snaps, right? Like, I want to see what he could do, get better tape on. At the worst case, give the coaches more coaching tips to help him continue to improve. Because right now they know probably what his weaknesses are, but maybe the Chiefs could show something else that could help Theo long term. In regards to your Quran take, I lean with you right now. I got him at like 9.5. Like, I know that's a cop out, but like between his pedigree, being Poles' third round pick, and I'm a big, huge Poles supporter, but we know he's been striking out in the third round, right? We know Velas, Quran, and we'll get to another guy in our defensive discussions in a minute. But I wonder if a team like Atlanta, who lost both their right tackle, who's also the blindside tackle because Penix is a lefty, and they also lost their swing tackle today for 6 to 8 weeks, might do, again, like I mentioned before, one of those like depth trades where we send Quran in a 7 to Atlanta for a 6, something like that. I know we're not recouping that third round pick that we drafted him for, but we get a draft pick in return to salvage something. We keep 9 because there are a couple bubble guys at least worth discussing, right? You joked just a minute ago about Doug Kramer. He's been hurt the last week and a half in camp. He was the backup center before Bates has kind of solidified that role. As much as we're surprised that Bates' shoulder has been, holding up throughout camp because we were all worried about that. We discussed that before. A guy that I don't think is getting as much notoriety that I think at least could be a potential bubble candidate. And I think, Bob, you put him on, the practice squad in this case is, I think Jordan McFadden. He's looked really good at left guard. He's been running with the 2s at left guard because Newman's been running with the 1s when Tooney's not been playing in these preseason games. So I think you have to keep a pure guard. It might be McFadden at that 10 spot if it's not Karan. Like, I have Karan right over McFadden right now, but it's very close. With Bill Murray being hurt as well during camp, along with Doug Kramer, I think you see those guys truly on the practice squad. And I know a lot of people are fans of Ricky Stromberg. If Kramer's seriously hurt, then Stromberg on the practice squad over Kramer. But I do think they keep Kramer on, in my opinion.
Real quick, Bob, before you jump in there, maybe if they make that trade, that 6th rounder could be what gets them Brian Robinson Jr.
Maybe
3-team trade, interesting.
Maybe, but I don't think, I just don't see any way Karan Abagaji gets cut. You don't cut third round picks with that type of, we say, just athletic traits before their second year in the NFL. And I don't think you trade them for 6th round picks either. Right. So I just think the Bears are stuck with Karan right now. It just kind of is what it is. And at least we finally saw him play well on an NFL field against Buffalo. Like, I thought he was just dominant in that fourth quarter. Yes, against Buffalo Bills, 4th string. Okay. But I think I joked in a previous episode, the next time we see Karan Amagaji play well will be the first, right? And we saw it. So it's something. It's definitely something. And again,
I just start somewhere.
In the NFL, you just don't cut third round picks before year 2. It just doesn't happen.
Real quick, for those stat heads out there, if you guys are PFF fans, Theo Benedict crushed the competition with his PFF grading that Bills game, just so anyone.
Did he really? Because I'm just one rep of his that stands out to me as him getting completely obliterated by a little stop and go by I understand his name, but the Landon Jackson from Arkansas. But
I was shocked. Right. It was in the 80s.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get the other trenches, the other side of the ball, defensive line. Let's start with the defensive tackles. I think this one is pretty clear. The 3 bubble candidates, I think, are relatively uninteresting. Maybe Zach is one because he was just a 3rd round pick, but at least he's got 3 years under his belt before you cut him. Right. But the top 4, Jarrett, Dexter, Billings, Turner, not going anywhere. Any guys want to talk about any of those bubble candidates?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. I have 5 defensive tackles making the roster. I know you the three of us disagree a little bit. I think Chris Williams is a lock. He's been that pass rushing defensive tackle. And to be honest, your fifth defensive tackle is not going to dress most games anyways. So it's a depth piece. I think Williams is a guy that would have a hard time sliding onto a practice squad. So that's another reason I'm keeping him. And Zach Pickens, and shout out to CHGO here because I was at their first year draft party with Rob, and on night 2, I was standing next to Kevin Kadick, and he was filming me when Pickens got drafted, and my reaction was really bad because I did not like the pick then, and it's clearly showing up now. Guy with all these traits and just never put it together in college and hasn't put it together in the pros, and unfortunately, it's sad. Now, I do think that Pickens will be kept on the practice squad because of the pedigree and because he's a polls pick, so they could try to hopefully maybe development another year, but
I
that's
could
kind
see
of where I
another
think.
NFL team picking up Zach Pickens, somebody else really hurting in the trenches, former third round pick. Maybe they had favorable scouting grades on him too, and like, hey, let's just get him in the building. And when a third round pick fails like that, I feel like they'd rather just go to another team too.
Fair enough.
If he had one more C in his name, he'd probably be staying around. But I also have Chris Williams, Gary. So you and I have the same exact 5. Chris Williams. Look, they traded for him. I know it wasn't like they gave up a lot of draft capital. I think they sent a 6th, and they got Williams back with the 7th, maybe. Maybe it was Williams by himself. I can't remember, but I just think he's the best of the bunch. I mean, honestly, I think Jonathan Ford has shown more, and I know we have him on the bubble there too, and I'm not keeping him, but I think he's shown more than Pickens has here in Chicago. I've been kind of an anti-Pickens guy. I wasn't a fan of the pick when it happened, and I'm not keeping him. So I have the exact same 5 as Gary.
Yeah, and I'm fine with. I had 5 defensive tackles. I just had my 5th spot open. I just didn't know that Chris Williams was someone that stood out to you guys. Didn't necessarily stand out to me. He's seemed to be just a guy in the NFL to me. Nothing too special. And if there was maybe a potential upgrade from somebody else's cut, maybe that's something you look at too.
And that's a good point, Bob. Like, I'm not saying Chris Williams is a lock. I have him locked with the current roster, but I think you just brought up a great point that if there's a defensive tackle that leaks out that you think is an upgrade over Chris Williams, I'm not going to be upset if they.
And I think that's an important thing for anyone still watching. Like, the last 4 or 5 spots on the roster are not like the odds are very low that they're going to still be on the team in week 13, right? The last few spots on your roster is constant churn in and out, in and out. Like, I bet you 2 or 3 of these guys, the only time they will actually be on the Bears 53 roster is the day it's announced. They won't even make it to week 1. Like, it's just the way the NFL goes. So we can't get caught up in numbers 51, 2, and 3 on the roster.
Yeah, there's a good chance that within 2 to 3 days of the announcement that there'll be a different 2 to 3 guys on the team.
Right, exactly. All right, so defensive end is a little interesting because I think at the beginning of camp, we weren't sure about one guy we all definitely have on the team, and Dominique Robinson. So good on him. And then one guy I thought was a sure lock in Daniel Hardy. They actually just signed him to above minimum contract this offseason, as special teams ace, but you guys aren't so sure he's going to make the team. So what are we going to make a defensive end here?
Yeah, I only have I have 5 defensive ends. No, I have 4 defensive ends. I only have 4. So Daniel Hardy does not make it on my roster. Look, I know he's got the special team ability. So if Hightower pounds a table for him, obviously he's going to have that opportunity to stay. But I have obviously Montez Sweat and Dio are the 2 locks for sure. Austin Booker, I'm locking him up. And maybe I'm giving him a contract extension right now if he continues to play the way he does in the preseason. And like you said, Bob, Dominique Robinson, I can't believe it. I've been trying to cut this guy for a year and a half now, and he's now a lock on my 53. Congrats.
Yeah, it's wild.
So I have 52 guys on my 53 right now, plus like what I call a floater. And I was explaining to you guys before the show, you could really go to some of these positions, especially for special teams. So is Hardy that floater? And Hardy might be that guy, Bob, you just alluded to, that maybe he does make the 53 for the first couple days. His defensive end of position, they are also scouting the waiver wire on to see if there's a slight upgrade. I guess the positive news we could look at this is that with Booker and Don Rob's injuries from the Buffalo game, they didn't bring anybody in this week for a tryout even that was reported. If their injuries were severe enough, I think you would have seen at least guys working out to get through Friday's game. But maybe the waiver wire is a position where they might look here, whether it is an upgrade over Hardy or just somebody else to bring in as the fifth guy.
So am I
Because-
overstating Hardy's special teams capabilities? I thought he was a core special teamer just like Travis Homer. And then the reason I'm okay having 5 with 1 being mostly a special teams guy is because some of the guys we have listed at defensive tackle can easily move outside to defensive end and things like that. There's a lot of flexibility up and down the line. But I thought Hardy was just like Homer, just like a core special teams player on this team.
I think last year he was, so I'm not going to disagree with you on that. Is high, as I said, I've got 52 plus 1, as they call my 53-man roster. So it's Hightower banging the table to Ben and to Ryan. On cut down day, hey, Daniel Hardy's got to be that 53rd guy because of special teams. One question you have to ask yourself is how many guys are you actually dressing on game day for the defensive line? I'm not going to separate it between end and tackle in this case, but on game day, typically a team's going to keep 8 guys active, right? So if Hardy's your 9th defensive lineman this year, how often is that going to be? Because keep in mind, Don Rob was not active most games last year, and Hardy was. So they basically have flip-flopped this year under this new regime. So just something to keep in mind.
And that was because of special teams, I think, right? So
mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was struggling between Hardy and a guy we're going to talk about here in just a minute. And I think both are kind of viewed as special teams guys.
Yeah, we can move.
But
Yeah.
Hardy is better at special teams, but I feel like you kind of have to keep a 5th linebacker. So, but I can see it either way.
Yeah, linebackers I think are pretty straightforward. We all agreed on the top 5 here: Edmonds, Edwards, Sewell, Hippolyte, and then I'm just going to say Amen O as a core. Oh, good for you, Gary. Went after it. Nicely done. I think
those for Justin
5 are pretty straightforward. Anything interesting about Power Eccles or Carl Jones we want to mention?
I think they're both. Power Eccles is a very undersized linebacker. He's like 5'10", 5'11", got a lot of speed, probably below average in coverage. A little bit like Ruben Hippolyte, at least right now, right? Hippolyte's a little bit undersized as a linebacker. There's always the talk around draft time. Could he maybe lose a little weight and actually be a box safety even? Because he has played really well downhill. We've seen in the Buffalo game, we saw in the Miami game that Hippolyte struggled a little bit in, coverage. And I think Power Eccles is like a poor man's Ruben Hippolyte even, where he's got the speed, but his coverage skills are lacking a little bit. And Carl Jones was a guy that was on the team last year, practice squad most of the year. I think he got a cup of coffee on the 53, if I remember correctly. So I think both those guys will probably make the practice squad just because, again, you need depth on the practice squad at linebacker. What is Rob doing? But
I don't know.
I don't think there's real.
I just heard you describe somebody as a poor man's Ruben Hippolyte, and he just broke his brain. I think that's what happened. How do you feel about that?
They're similar, as I said. They're similar size. They got similar speed. They both struggle at least right now in coverage, but they're both downhill backers. And I think Eccles and Carl Jones have looked good against 3rd and 4th stringers. So yeah, keep them on the practice squad.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Why not? Anything to add, Rob?
I'm just surprised I kept Ruben Hippolyte on this team. AO was the guy I was referring to as far as the special teamer. And he's who I was struggling to keep. So like between him and Hardy, whoever gets pounded for the table more, that I'm not going to be upset when I hear one or the other's kept.
Sure. So cornerback, I think, is a very interesting just because of the attrition at the position right now.
So happened last year, I
guess it was so deep, but am I blanking on the guy from Minnesota who just got hurt?
Terrell Smith.
Gary, I guess you didn't think he was going to make the team anyway, so maybe that doesn't really affect his chances.
There was a little smoke out of OTAs that, Smith was outside looking in. I know Ben talked about him briefly, and so did Dennis Allen, but he was a zone corner, and Nishan Wright, who was depth last year in Dallas, and I know that's an Al Harris guy, surpassed him in OTAs. And, you know, we started hearing whispers that, hey, this Nishan Wright guy looks pretty good in OTAs. Again, no pads, a lot against the air, but and all of a sudden in camp, we're like, hey, it's Wright versus Stevenson, potentially for opposite Jalen Johnson. Not, and Smith wasn't even in the conversation. So I had Smith outside looking in, but as you said, Bob, attrition started happening. Then I had Smith as a lock, but right now I've got 6 corners, but the 6 corners are your 4 main guys, and as you have down there, Johnson, Gordon, Wright, and Stevenson. Blackwell just got a 2-year contract, and he's and Hightower's a big proponent of him. And then we have Nick McLeod as the 6th corner, and I'll say this, and Rob knows because I've been talking about it his ear off. McLeod's been playing with the starters at nickel over Blackwell ever since the Miami game. He was hurt, didn't play in the Miami game, but then all that week it was McLeod, and Blackwell was playing. Now, there been a little talk that Blackwell might have been banged up. I don't believe he played at Buffalo at all. McLeod actually played the entire game. Like Blackwell had to play the entire game against Miami at nickel. But McLeod also does have a little bit of ability to play outside, and he has played a little bit of safety. I think even in emergency for the 49ers where he was before here. So as of right now, I got McLeod being the 6th guy and Trey Flowers going the practice squad.
Yeah, and I'm giving Gary his props because if anyone saw the stuff from like Brad Biggs today, Gary's been saying this for a week and a half, 2 weeks now. So
yeah, and I definitely have the Bears keeping 6 cornerbacks. I think that that's just a number you just have to have in the NFL these days. And right now, great, let's put Nick McLeod there, but this might be another spot where we're going to see who gets cut and see if we can upgrade that last spot at corner.
So I have 7 corners on my 53-man roster,
Okay.
but mine is a floater, my 7th. So it could be anyone here or anyone they decide to add.
So real
do you
quick,
think they would trade for one? Like, do you think it'll be another depth trade where it's like, again, that 6 for player and 7, or do you think they'll look more waiver wire, as you were saying, Bob?
Look,
I think it'd be waiver wire, but whatever's available.
Ryan Poles isn't afraid to make these trades.
No, he's not.
He's done, late into training camp.
Yeah. So is there anything we want to say about Zay Frazier or Zoff Frazier?
I will.
We got him listed as NFI here. What does that mean?
So I heard that Frazier's been periodically in the building, and then today a lot of the beat were saying that he was at practice today, standing around watching. My understanding is that as long as Frazier doesn't practice, like he could be physically in the building but doesn't practice, they could keep it on NFI. Now, I know some people on social media came after me because they're like, well, you can't keep him on NFI because the team doesn't pay for him. I did link an NFL.com article that did state that it's actually the team's discretion whether you want to pay somebody on the NFI or not. So will the Bears keep Frazier on the NFI all season long as a redshirt year with whatever personal issue he's doing? Will he practice between now and the season and get a phantom injury, and then he goes on PUP, right? And then they have 4 weeks to decide whether to put him on IR for the season or take him off PUP. A lot of different ways you could go, but I don't put it this way. I don't expect Frazier to be cut and then try to stash on the practice squad. I think they're going to, quote unquote, hide him on one of these lists and keep him around for a redshirt year.
So you think if he gets cut just flat out, like let's just say one of these other guys in the secondary, Mark Perry, who's not going to make the team, you cut Mark Perry, you activate Zay Frazier, and then you cut him, you think there's risk that another team might pick him up because they liked him in the draft too as a 5th rounder?
In today's NFL, you never know, Bob, right? So I think that if Frazier is pure cut like you just suggested in your scenario, any NFL team is going to go back to their scouting reports, right? Because there is no tape on him from training camp in preseason. They're going to see an older, longer, lengthier corner with some traits, late bloomer, right? So he's already an older prospect, and as much as we joke about with the, Valus Jones and even Torrey Taylors of the world as being older drafted prospects, here's another one. I think he's 25 already, so
who needs a red shirt year?
If you do redshirt him, he's already 26, right? Some corners are into their second contracts already, at 26 years old. So
But we know Al Harris loves him. We know Al Harris loves him.
Yes, that's why I
So,
think they'll stash him as a redshirt year. I don't think they're going to expose him, but you never know. There's a lot of different scenarios at play.
All right, so our safeties, I think there's 4 clear cut. I mean, it's the same 4 from last year, same top 4 entering training camp this year. Any surprises here? Anybody worth mentioning? Like Rob, I think maybe you considered bubble guys.
So real quick, Bob, I see a typo here on the graphic going there at the bottom. It's supposed to say Jonathan Biles, not Jonathan Owens.
Mr. Biles.
Yeah. So look, Alex Cook is a guy that just kind of keeps flashing here and there to the point where I was like, man, if I just keep 6 corners, do I keep a 5th safety and maybe he's my floater? I just don't know if I didn't keep him on my 53, but he was just a guy I had to think about. So to me, if I have to think about it, then he's on my bubble. And he's just one of those guys where I'm like, let's see if we can upgrade that position, whether it's at corner, whether it's at safety. But just a guy that I felt like just had to be discussed a little bit. And in the end, again, I didn't really actually keep him. So that's why he's there. He's on the bubble and he just didn't make it.
I don't have much to add other than this could be another position, not on the roster, but looking across waiver wires across the league. Is there an upgrade at safety that another team that you could stash on your practice squad? That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and I like Hicks and Owens. I think they're pretty decent backups. So I think we're actually okay there. Last position group, our specialists, Cairo Santos, Torrey Taylor, Scott Daly. Any updates on those? Good to go.
Unless Torrey Taylor's pounding the table for his long snapper from Iowa, I think this is pretty obvious.
So, I mean, I saw Elkin. He was doing long snaps in the preseason games, and I didn't notice any mistakes. So maybe they want to save $150,000 and go with an undrafted free agent rookie contract as opposed to a veteran contract. I don't know.
I may be in the minority here, but maybe Elkin makes it to the practice squad. You saw last year where they had to go because of injuries, right? They had to bring in Daly, and then Daly got hurt, and they had to bring in a 3rd long snapper for 1 week. In the well, I'm not even talking about in the game, but you're right, Rob, right? So the point is that they had some attrition at the long snapper position last year, which you don't typically see with teams. So maybe Elkin sticks around on the practice squad just so that they don't have to worry about finding the journeyman on the street that week to bring him in if something does happen.
Let's not forget, though, Cole Kmet won Special Team Player of the Week that week.
That's right.
Because he also caught a touchdown.
All right, Dr. Truth, I think we got our requisite long snapper talk in, so we're good to go.
I will say, look, if they keep Elkin over Scott Daly, that'll be the shortest tenured long snapper in Chicago Bears history in over 2 decades.
Might be even longer than 2 decades, but yeah, absolutely, 100%. So, all right. We will aggregate our top 53 and put a graphic up here so everyone can kind of see where we actually ended up. We actually did get to 53. I know that we just kind of conversed position by position, but we'll show it here at the end. Anything you guys want to add?
Gary?
No, I'm good. I just appreciate you guys having me on again, so thank you very much.
Yeah, anytime, Gary. Happy to have you.
I got nothing other than, again, check out our next episode. We will do the giveaway for those 3 lucky winners who were, subscribed and had been commenting on videos. So
100%. So, all right, well, bear down.
Claws up.
Claws up. Ready, break.